So we went ahead and added a gil variable, just like we did with energy. And of course we set the gil equal to 0 because this is a young boy and he most likely doesn't have a job and doesn't have any money. Hence why he would need to loot his parents' gold stash. Right? So we start the game, gil is equal to 0. He chooses to grab his parents' sack of gold before leaving the house, and that's going to run loot escape here. We set the gil variable as one of the global variables that are going to be used in this function definition, and then we run change gil. Right? And change gil, of course, is very similar to change energy, except instead of changing the energy, we're changing the gil, and we're printing it out. Okay. Notice here that we're using the same variable diff as our parameter for change energy and for change gil, but that doesn't cause any problems because diff is local to change energy and only exists in the change energy function definition, and this diff over here is local and only exists in the change gil function definition. So these two variables refer to two different variables with the same name. Right? So yeah, so we go ahead and run it, and let's see if it actually works. Let me increase the size here, say Daniel. I'm going to grab the sack of gold, and I now have this much gold, so it actually did work. Okay, and if you'll notice here, in the second part of the function definition, I have Daniel perishing. Okay, but I want to make this game a little bit more interesting and have the money be a critical part of the winning of the game. Right? So after he loots his gold, what I want him to do is to eventually get to a place where he can purchase a weapon with that gold, right? Or maybe purchase a potion that he can use later on in the game. So yeah, I don't want him to die here, right? So let's say here, let's get to the bottom of the well. Okay, and maybe instead of doing this, we can say, right, something along the lines of, strangely enough, at the bottom, no, let's see, strangely enough, name was met by an arms dealer, print, at the bottom of the well. Right? The arms dealer in need of cash, of gil, all right, asked Daniel if he would like to buy a weapon. Okay, so let's do a print, and let's do a new line here, and let's say, would you like to buy a longsword? And then we could take in the input, right? So we could say choice is equal to input, which is going to be a number. Ooh, maybe I could just take this and put it in the input. That would be better. Okay, and we can have an if statement, right? So if choice is equal to 1, let's see, if you like buy a weapon, okay, let's put here 1 for longsword, and let's say 2 for not this time, or no thanks. All right. So if choice is equal to 1, then we can also maybe keep track of his weapon, right? So we would want to have his weapon's name. So we want to come up here and say weapon name is equal to hands, or maybe say fists, right? Because that's what he would start out with. And we also want to use the weapon to inflict damage, right? So we want to say damage is equal to 1, maybe, right in the very beginning. Okay, but if he purchases the longsword, then we want his damage to increase and his weapon to be longsword. Okay, so I'm going to say if choice is equal to 1, then I'm going to say change weapon to longsword. Whoa, longsword. And maybe I could pass in 2 values, and I could also pass in the change in damage, right? So the first argument is going to be the name, and the second argument will be the damage, of how much his damage will be taking off this time. And then I could say else, because else means he didn't want anything, and I could say something like print no thanks, right? I don't think, no, I am going to save my money, or make gil. And then over here I could print something like thanks, sir, right? This longsword is sure to come in handy. Okay, so I'm going to erase this change energy here at the bottom, and now we need to define change weapon, right? And what is change weapon going to do? Well, it's going to take in 2 arguments, a string and a number, and it's going to use the string to set weapon name, and it's going to use the integer, the second argument, to set the weapon damage. Right? So let's go ahead and do that. And of course we want this to be consequential, so we want it so that if he doesn't choose to buy the longsword here, that he's most likely going to lose the game. So on the next choice, maybe we can have him encounter some powerful enemy that he must use the longsword to defeat. Okay, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But for now, go ahead and define change weapon, and we'll move on.